This is the 217 Recovery Podcast with Corey Winfield.
That was kind of a funny voice recording there. Yeah, you do kind of have a radio voice, don't you? Anyway, this is Dan calling. Talk to you when I talk to you. Later, bye.
It is the 29th of November, 2020. This is the 217 Recovery Podcast. My name is Corey Winfield, doing a kind of a special tonight. Before we get into it, before I talk about what it is, I do want to remind you that Giving Tuesday is coming up on Tuesday, and we're really going to ask for your support. I know there's Facebook. You can get on there and create a fundraiser. Keep us in mind. You know, we are a nonprofit, so we're straight with the government. So if you want to go ahead and put our name up there and just say, hey, you know, raise money for people who help people in early recovery and who want to get out of active addiction. So we really do appreciate that. But tonight, going to go back to December 15th, 2019, where I had my 1 year sobriety. And in that summer of 2019, I want to say June, maybe even before that, May, I had realized that I didn't want to talk about my story until I hit the year mark. I had never been to the year mark before. So it was just added pressure, I guess, added ammunition that could actually get me to that year mark. So I made a flyer, I made a date, you know, and I had to be there for it. So without further delay, here is my 1 year from last year. December 15th, 2019. Enjoy. December 15th, 2019. It's been 365 days since I started this journey of sobriety. It's my 1 year anniversary. People have asked me to speak, and from speaker meetings to AA meetings, like, hey, tell your story. And I've always declined. I was very excited when they were like, hey, will you speak? Because I love talking. And it just kind of came to the point where I realized that I wanted to wait for a year. They say if you make it to a year, you have a really good chance to make it to 2, to 3, to 5, to, you know, like sustaining this sobriety. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait till a year. And so I declined several times, and I was honored. I told parts of my story here and there, but never like the full blown story before. And I wanted my family and friends to be able to hear it first. And with the 217 Recovery Podcast, they can hear it, and you guys can hear it too. I'm in a room full of friends. I consider all of you guys friends. Some of you I like more than others, though. But I appreciate you guys being here, and the fact that you even showed up to listen to me tell my story, it means a lot. And thank you guys so much for being here, really. Hopefully none of you were made to be here. Okay, good. All right, so some of the backstory, though, I already mentioned to everybody in the room, but I'm going to kind of tell it again. I was in radio for 20 years. I worked in Benton Harbor, Kalamazoo, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas at the same time. I was in 2 different markets. And I quit radio, and it was like a piece of my soul was gone. I mean, it's something I did for 20 years, and I was pretty good at it. Right, Dustin? Or, yeah, whoever, Mr. But it was my identity. Like, it was something that was me. You know, I used my real name on the radio, so I tried to tell real stories, had to have a lot of fun with it too, but most of the time they were real stories. But when that was taken away from me, a therapist had told me that, you know, it's going to be hard for me because that station, that the last one I worked at, he said they didn't just take away your job, they took away your identity, man. And it took a while for that to set in. But when I was here at a treatment center, that's where I realized what I had to do a podcast about. You know, podcasting, some people are familiar with it, some aren't, but it's a way that normal people can talk about things, and a lot of people follow them. A lot of them are very successful. A lot of them are horrible, if you can only imagine, you know. You know that one guy who's like, I'm going to start a podcast about trucks or, something. And they're like, okay, man. And they go and do it. And you're just listening. And you're just like, wow, that is bad. Some of them are really bad. And when I was here, though, there was a woman by the name of Joyce Fetro. She really talked me into doing the podcast about being in recovery. And I know a lot about recovery, as you're going to find out as I get into my story. But my concern and my worry, though, was, but I'm only going to have 3 months sober. Like, who's going to listen to that? The people are going to be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And Joyce said to me, well, she put it, and I'm going to be nice, though, but she said, F those people. And I was like, well, they're going to be the people I'm talking to. She's like, no, F those people. The people that are hating, they're just mad because they're not doing anything with their recovery. And they're seeing you go out there. And she's like, Corey, I know you're going to be successful at it. You're going to go out there, you're going to kill it. And people are going to be hating. They're going to be coming out of everywhere hating. And don't worry about it. I was like, okay, easier said than done. My fear of acceptance goes back a lot further than what I could even realize. Back in high school even. But my drinking started, though, when I was 12. The first time that I remember getting a good buzz on, my stepbrother rolled up in his Z28. It was brown. It was a bad car, man. He was like 17. I always looked up to him. And he rolled up and he's like, hey, you want to go for a ride? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to go for a ride. So we cruised through town and he handed me this orange juice bottle. And he told me it was a screwdriver. I was like, dude, that's orange juice. Like, what are you talking about? That's not a screwdriver. He's like, no, just drink it. I drank it and I thought, man, that tastes funny. He's like, yeah, there's vodka in it. I was like, what? He's like, that's why it's called a screwdriver. Okay. Anyway, by the end of the trip, man, I was feeling damn good. I was feeling buzzed. I liked it. And that was the first time that I ever realized, wow, that's what it does. Because before, when you're like 4 or 5 and mom or dad gives you a sip of beer, you're like, that's gross. But that was the first time I understood why people drank. And then I would go to my aunt's house and she'd go off partying. She was a big bar person, let's just say, it would be nice. She was single, and she had it going on for her age, so she would go out and she would do her thing. She wouldn't care. So she'd leave us home, and my cousin and I, we'd just start drinking, man. And that was probably when I was like 14. 15, had some buddies of mine were ruffians that would drink quite a bit on the weekends down in the basement. And, back then, 100 years ago, it was okay as long as you kept it in the house, which, of course, we never did. But as far as the parents were concerned, as long as you're drinking here at my house, I know what's going on. I'll take your keys, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know 4 other dudes were going to show up and we'd be off cruising around town. But so they thought they had it under control. And the only control really you have is to just not allow it. If one day I have kids, I'm not going to be like, yeah, just drink in the basement. I'm going to let them know, like, hey, this is the struggle that I had. And you got to be very careful with it. Not meaning that you can never have a drink, but the benefits really aren't really all that good. And for me, being on the radio was something that really scared the shit out of me, and I wanted to do it at the same time. So it was a struggle. And back in high school, I would always kind of try to have fun. I was class clown, Coloma High School, 1996. What's up? Signed T-shirts later. But that was something I think I did because I wanted to feel accepted. And again, I didn't know it at the time. So when I got into radio, the boss asked me if I wanted, to talk. And I was like, yeah. He went through this whole firing spree. And so there's lots of shifts open. So he let me work overnights on the weekend. I just turned 18. And man, I thought that was awesome. I was shaking so bad the first time I turned on the microphone. And as I moved up and started doing weekend nights, I'd do Saturday nights. And I thought it was great because while people were partying, I could be partying. I was underage, but they had this big building in the back where they kept the station vehicles, and it was full of beer. And it had a golf cart. So a friend of mine, Jamie Riley, I got him a job there, and he was a funny guy from the city right next to the one I grew up in. And we go hit the golf cart, drink beer, and I'd go in and do my show. And man, I thought it was great. You know, I had that, they call it liquid courage. You know, I had that courage to say some smart ass something to whatever on the phone. You know, if there's a guy calling and saying dumb stuff, I had that quick wit comeback, you know, and I thought it was the alcohol that was doing it. So it became more of a empowering substance for me to use in my life to be better on the radio. And then I discovered pot and started liking pot. And then I got busted for pot. I had to do a year of probation in Berrien County. I had to do P tests every week, and they had told me that I was going to be tested for marijuana and cocaine. At that time, I had never even tried cocaine, so I was just like, okay, I can't smoke weed. So I did acid, I did shrooms, and I drank a lot. Like the girlfriend I had at the time, her parents would smoke pot, and they would feel bad that, you know, I'd come home and, well, I didn't have nothing. So they started buying me alcohol. And that's when the alcohol really kind of bumped up to even more, and the pot fell off. I got off probation, smoked a joint driving out of the courthouse because that's what, you know, rebels do. And eventually, though, the pot just kind of went away. It went down and down and down. I was doing cocaine. I was doing whatever you wanted, because I was told acid would kill you. I was told all this other stuff will kill you. You know, cocaine's not going to kill me, and all these other drugs aren't going to kill me. Why not try them? You know, they're fun, right? I got back into radio because I had to quit when I was on probation. The judge told me that nothing good comes out of radio, and there's always drugs around. And so off probation, get back into radio, and I started moving up, and I was doing middays. And I would have the news lady go to the liquor store to get liquor for me during my shift. And I would be so plastered. And one day I was driving home, and I was really drunk, and I heard a commercial that I had recorded, and it was horrible. It was so bad. I was slurring my words, come down to shit. I mean, it was bad. And I drove back. I had to redo that commercial. It took me forever, but I finally got it to where it wasn't as bad as it was. And I swore that day that I would never drink on the air again. And things started turning up pretty good. I told my mom, I came clean to her and said, look, I got a problem. I don't know what to do. I was 23 at the time. I just have to stop drinking the hard stuff. And she agreed, yeah. You know, like, how about we start there? And I didn't want to go to rehab. I didn't need that, you know. I'm not an alcoholic or anything. I just need to slow down. So I started, instead of drinking in the morning, I'd get out of bed and go for walks. And my shows got better. I started thinking a little bit more clear, you know, and I got a job offer from a station in Kalamazoo. Jay Deacon called me up and wanted me to apply. And I thought, man, I just read about this dude. He was in this big radio magazine article. And I was like, I just read about this guy, and he's calling me, wanting me to apply for a job. And like, I'm fucking awesome. That's what I was thinking. You know, I'm like, yeah, I did it. So I go to Kalamazoo. I get there, and it was a scary time for me because I didn't know anybody in Kalamazoo. And I remember I had this big apartment, and I was sitting on a beanbag. That's all I had. And I'm sitting there with this 12-pack of whatever nasty ice beer because I had to have the high alcohol content. And I'm just sitting there. And I remember thinking there's like this blinking light across the street. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? Is this what it's going to be like? And I got some furniture, got a girlfriend in Kalamazoo, and she was in radio too. And she got a job in San Antonio. So she moves to San Antonio, and the plan was I would just send out some tapes because I was listening to the radio there online, and I was like, man, these guys suck. Like, I can get a job there in a heartbeat. I was pretty cocky. And nothing was happening. So after about 6 months, she's like, well, just come down. And so I was like, okay. So I sold everything I owned, quit my job, moved to San Antonio. And I had sent out demos the night before and said, hey, I'll be there in 3 days. And, man, they blew my phone up. They're like, yeah, you're going to be here? Definitely want to see you. So I get there. I ended up working for the company that she worked for, but I hated it. And it was miserable, and I was drinking a lot. I would come home before her, and I would make sure that I had enough beer that she didn't know how much I would have when she got there. Like, I would try to drink as much as I could. 6, 7 beers. I'd slam them. And then, oh, no, here's